Architecture Weekly. We have two things to discuss, and we'll start with Diffs performance instrumentation. Thomas, you're working on this, right? And I think I just wanted to clarify two things probably. So the first one is for the first iteration, doing window performance manager is good enough for the first and last diff file. Since we don't have a lot of stuff on the page yet, we should just check when the first file gets rendered and when we finish rendering the whole thing. Once we add more stuff, we can work on more advanced user stories, discussions, switching modes, etc. And this looks like a straightforward approach to this. I don't know where exactly we should store these metrics. We discussed debug bear. I honestly don't have experience with setting this up. Again, Naile is the best person to reach out, I think, for this. Yeah, so hopefully
Yeah, we used to have a project for all this stuff, but I guess that's gone now, or it's not being used anymore. So we used to be able to actually check in the performance testing that we wanted to do. Of course, the performance.measure stuff had to be in the regular code base, but we could check in the actual tests that we wanted to confirm. So yeah, I don't know. I'll talk to her and just see what the state of the art is here at GitLab now. But I guess debug bear is one place to start.
Yeah, sounds like it at least. All right, anything else regarding instrumentation?
No, I think that's fine. First file done with all the files. Do we have, so that's the thing with the test setup that we used to have, was that it was a consistent environment. Do we have a test URL that will always render 100 diff files or something, so we can see timings change if they're changing? Or are we just kind of take averages of production?
If we have anything that worked previously for our regular diffs, that can work fine. We just pass rapid diffs through and it will render rapid diffs. So if we have this can work. I know that we have a page for site speed 10K architecture that has a page with a lot of diffs. If we can repurpose that, that would be pretty good, because this page is already measured for quite a while, and we can actually start comparing the metrics against our current architecture.
Yeah,
that can work.
Is the rapid diffs feature flag on in production, so we can just pass the?
No.
Okay.
You have to tweak it. I don't know which instance of GitLab this is using. Maybe this is using staging or something like this. We can enable it for staging and it should work, I guess.
All right. Yeah, I'll look into that. I think the majority of this is going to be getting infrastructure right, because the performance measuring is not that much code difference. So I'll see what we've got.
Yeah. All right. So next up is Shadow DOM performance testing. This might be a tricky one because it's kind of related to the first point of performance instrumentation. I think for this one, we need the same metrics here: time to render the first file and time to render the last file. And then basically compare these metrics against Shadow DOM and regular CSS.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking that this will be hard to set up initially, at least to give meaningful results, because you can simply drop all the CSS inside the web component and it will work, of course, but I'm not sure if it creates an overhead that is not actually meaningful. So we won't be doing that in production, obviously.
Yeah. That's what I was telling Andre yesterday. I was like, there's actually a lot of development work here to make it a realistic test, because realistically we would want to kind of refactor our CSS so that it's only parsed once and brought into each shadow DOM, adopted or whatever. Um, so there's a lot of like setup and development work to make this a realistic test of what we'd want to do in production. So it's not impossible, but um,
for this one, I think if we go with just Tailwind CSS, it can work
mm,
potentially, because I think we are
mm,
just using SVG icons at the moment in the existing file viewers,
okay, yeah,
and probably nothing else. I tried to use pajamas buttons in the refactored version. I don't think it makes sense. We should just
mm,
use regular buttons.
okay,
Apart from that, yeah, you can technically create, or at least I think it's already created. We have a page bundle for rapid diffs. You can include that style sheet inside the web component HTML and use declarative shadow DOM to render that component. That can work, I guess. I'm not sure how much of overhead declarative shadow DOM adds, and if it's truly supporting streaming. I guess it does. Yeah, it does. I tested it and it supports streaming. It should support adding styles. So
yeah,
technically nothing needed from the JavaScript side. You just wrap everything inside the diff file element into a template, add shadow root open, and it should work. Yeah,
in theory, yeah,
in theory, of
okay,
course.
yeah, um, okay, yeah, yeah. So I think maybe I will get the performance testing going first, because it's basic. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, it's basically this is the second step. We need the initial performance testing anyway. So those two things are very closely linked.
Yep.
Um, okay.
All right. Anything else regarding Shadow DOM?
I wonder if you saw Paulina's comment on it was on the performance testing Shadow DOM issue. Um, Basically, she looked into various things and linked out to an article about like accessibility. Um, Sort of the bottom line is it gets really difficult to keep things accessible if when you cross that shadow DOM boundary, like if you attach a popover that's outside the shadow DOM to something that's inside, the accessibility tooling can't connect those things.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, immediate action items are nothing because we just are doing testing at the moment. But long term, the easiest thing to do would be that anything that appears next to Shadow DOM things is in the same Shadow DOM that it's attached to, because we can just avoid all of that cross boundary stuff entirely. Um, that's a pretty like blunt approach, but it will prevent any issues in the future. So that's just a note to keep in mind as we're doing anything with Shadow DOM. If we move forward, we might want to bring like popovers and tooltips and whatever into the Shadow DOM that we're creating. I don't know how feasible that is with what we're setting up. I'm not like I just don't know. So
I agree on that. I feel like at this point, dealing with Shadow DOM just adds a lot more problems than it solves. And the only problem we are solving is style isolation. Maybe we can treat it more like a linting problem. Just don't allow writing a lot of cascades or external classes that are not belonging to rapid diffs inside our style sheets.
Yeah.
And that should technically solve most of the problems, even if we don't keep our eye on it. That seems like a more simple approach to that. But still, if it doesn't have any performance impact, that's good to know. So we can at least consider it at some point in the future.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, I don't have anything else too. So let's conclude this. Thank you, Thomas, for working on this. Looking forward for the results. See you next time.
Yep. See you next time. Have a good day. Bye.
You too.